Welcome to Dr. JALIL photography channel. Today I'll be testing the working distance of this lens. This one is Sony F4 72 200mm zoom lens with macro capability. This one is new lens launched few months back by Sony. So I'll be testing the working distance from the subject to the lens using this steel tape. So if you have one of this lens, or if you want to purchase, this video might help you in deciding whether you should buy it or not for macro photography. I have uploaded a couple of videos on this lens in outdoor as well as on my tabletop studio, but I had something in my mind. What could be the working distance or how far I can take pictures from this lens? Before going to the field again, I wanted to have some experience on the working distance of this lens. That's why I am presenting this video today for my viewers. Let me explain the studio setup first. I'll be using a green leaf as a background, and I've illuminated the background with a spotlight over here so that my background doesn't come very dark, because I'll be using a higher f-stop like f6 or f8. So I've illuminated the background a little bit so that my background comes in a green color. Now I'm taking these two pink color flowers as a subject today, and I've given a small spotlight from the bottom to illuminate the flowers. Now it is about the settings of my lens. This lens has got both autofocus and manual focus, but since I'm doing a macro photography, I'm using manual focus. And there are three positions for the distance. One is full, one is infinity to 0.3 meter, from full and from infinity to 3 meter. Since I'm doing macro, so I'm using macro position for the lens. There are optical stabilization, so that is also on. So this is the setting of the lens. In my camera now, my camera is Sony A7R III, and there is a Godox flash on top of it, Godox 350V. And you can see this Popeshield radiant diffuser for photography today. So this is, I'm done with the background, the subject and the lens setting and the camera setting. Let me start. First I'll take some pictures at 70mm, the lowest possible focal length of this lens, and I'll measure the working distance from the subject to the front of the lens. Let me focus a little bit. I'll take few more. I've taken 3 pictures, and let me measure the length. This is roughly 11-inch distance from the subject to the lens. With the same working distance, I will increase the focal length to 100mm. See what happens. Now I've set this focal length to 100mm. The size of the subject increased. Let me measure the gap, or let me measure the working distance. Now this is 9 inch. 9 inch from the lens top to the subject, and the size of the flower becomes bigger. Now I'm going to change the focal length to 135 millimeter. Size increased, the magnification of the subject increased. Let me take some picture at 135. At 135 the background become more dark and blurred. I will have to edit a little bit at the end of the session with Lightroom. Now I'm going to change the focal length again up to 200 millimeter, the maximum for this lens. Now I'll take some pictures, at least 3 to 4 at this position, and you might have noticed I haven't changed the position of the camera. So this is working distance exactly 8 inch from the lens to the subject. Let me focus a little bit. As I've increased the focal length, the gap reduced a little bit, but background became very dark. The f-stop at 6.3. So what I'll do now, I want to take pictures with the same size of the frame as 70 millimeters. So what I'll do, I'll increase the gap. I'll keep the focal length 200 millimeter. If I want to take picture of the same size as 70 millimeter, what I can do, I can pull it back, increase the gap. Now I have pulled back the camera, and this is 16 inch from the lens top to the subject. Now there is a gap from subject to lens is 16 inch at 200 millimeter focal length. Let me do some focusing of the center of the flower. The pictures are very dark. Why? Flash is far away from the subject. So at this moment I need to increase the flash strength to 1 stop. I've changed the flash strength to 1/4. It was 1/8 before. I think I'll have to increase further. It seems to be okay at 1/2. Now I'm taking the picture at flash strength of 1/2. That means whenever I shoot from far away from the subject with this lens, I have to have a very strong flashlight. Let me take few more pictures. Changing the angle a little bit. The background is very dark. I want to forward the background a little bit. I forwarded the background a little bit and take some pictures more. It looks excellent, very sharp, very detailed. Let me check the gap again. This is exactly 16 inch from the subject to lens top at 200 millimeter. So whenever I go outside for macro work, I have now an estimate of the gap from my subject to lens. So I can take pictures of insect or other flowers about 1 inch long, about 1 inch big, or maybe 1.5 inch, very easily from 16 inch working distance. Now I'll do some very close-up shots with this lens. Let me see how it comes. So I'll forward the lens 200 millimeter, very close, and focus the subject. I cannot focus at this 200 millimeter. So what I'm going to do, reduce little bit, change the angle of the camera, focus. So I can see the center of the flower. I'm using 135 millimeter from this close gap, and I can get very big magnification. So now here it is about 6" from the lens top to the flower. 6". I'm taking pictures at 135mm from a working distance of 6", and I can see the center of the flower very clearly with this setup. Since I bring the camera closer to the subject, I have to reduce the flush strength to 1/16. Take few more pictures in this position. I need to change the angle a little bit. I want to focus center of the flower. Let me see how can I go close. At 200mm I cannot go very close to the subject, and now I am testing the gap between the subject and the lens at 70mm, and I can get a very close photograph, very big size at the center of the flower with this little gap. Let me check the distance from the subject. It's 3". I can get as close as 3" at 70mm. Now I'm taking pictures from a 3" working distance from the lens to the subject at 70mm. Very beautiful, very sharp, very detailed, and good magnification of the center of the flower. Let me take a few more pictures in a different angle. I'll show you the picture right now after editing in Lightroom 2023. Let me take some pictures in a different angle. It's beautiful pictures from 45-degree angle from the subject to the flower. Let me check the distance. It is about 3.5" from the subject to the lens top. Let me take few more pictures. I've changed the angle a little bit. Taking several pictures in this 45-degree angle, focusing a little bit with the focus ring. So this is done for today. The purpose of this video was to check how close I can go with the subject with this lens and how far I can take pictures at 200mm. I found it about 16" gap, so for a subject like 1" flower, but if it is a very small tiny subject like an insect or a spider, I'll have to go very close, take some pictures very closely. But keep in mind, this lens is only 1:0.5 magnification. So it is not 1:1 macro lens, it is 1:0.5 macro lens. It will be difficult to take pictures of very tiny subject like flies or jumping spider. I might have to go very close at 70mm. But for a larger subject like a flower or some butterflies, I think I can take pictures from 1 feet to 16" 18" away. If you plan to buy this lens for macro photography, well, this could be a secondary choice. Primary choice for macro photography is 1:1 lens or 1:2 lens. 1:2 lens made by Laowa or 1:1 lens, there are plenty in different brands and different qualities. If you want to do macro photography with a dedicated lens, I would recommend to buy 1:1 or above macro lenses. But this is for all-rounder lens, which I like most. I bought this lens for my travel photography where I want to do landscaping, I want to do street photography, architectural photography. But since macro is my passion, so I want to have a lens where I can use same lens for all my purposes for my future travel photography. I'm happy with this lens. and I'll do a few more testing outside with this lens to see the performance again. I'll upload my future videos on this lens as well in my YouTube channel. If you like my videos, if you like my techniques, if you like my lens reviews, diffusers, whatever is required for macro photography, please subscribe my channel, press the bell icon for my upcoming projects. Stay connected. See you in next video. Thank you for watching. Until the end. Bye bye.